India's economy has slowed down. The middle class in particular is hurting. That is what we are talking about in this week's National Interest. I will just steal one moment from you before I get to the details of the National Interest by informing you that we are now closing admissions for the third batch of the Print School of Journalism. The second batch is now undergoing teaching training. This is a wonderful course taught by very good, accomplished journalists, mostly editors in our newsroom. We also get outside experts to teach you. So whether you want to choose journalism as a career or you want to learn about journalism, you are curious, you want to do value addition to whatever else you've chosen by way of your career, this is a wonderful way to learn. I will tell you also that there is no particular point studying journalism for 3 years or these days 4 years or sometimes 4+2 years. You don't need to study that much journalism because basic journalism education is best had from people who are on the job, who've been there, done that, and who know what they are talking about. And then you learn from the newsroom. So if you take this, you also have an opportunity to come and work in our newsroom. You can come and intern here. You will see pictures as I speak of people who've been interning, people who've been writing for us. You can see the bylines, people who've been working here. So this is an opportunity and this takes very little time. In fact, it takes just quick 4 months. Classes are held over the weekends, Saturday, Sunday. So you can be doing anything else and yet find time and do it. This is closing next week. 1st of February, the classes begin. So I thought I will just mention it to you. That said, I go back to the point of the week, which is this week's National Interest. India's economic engine is slowing and screeching, and the ones hurting the most are the vast middle classes. Why the BJP doesn't particularly worry about this, or why the party can take them for granted? This is something to which we will return in a bit. The larger crisis first. It isn't merely the function of one bad quarter. Last quarter had 5.4% growth. But it isn't just the function of one bad quarter. The central government's statistical organization, the Reserve Bank of India, and global organizations have all scaled down this year's growth estimate to below 6.5%. There is little evidence that a turnaround is around the corner. Economics is complex for me, so I leave it for economists to argue over these issues. It is safer for me, however, to bat on the pitch I am more familiar with: politics and public opinion. First of all, the air of optimism, the all-conquering India has arrived spirit is now ebbing. The hawa, or what we say for vibe, has changed. It has dimmed. The millionaires are buying assets and residencies overseas or long-term visas that come with them. There is plenty of data already in the public domain on Indian millionaires shifting overseas. Over the past 2 years, the average is 5,000. That is 5,000 per year. And this is according to Henley Private Wealth Migration Report, which is considered quite authentic. You would never hear these wealthy complain. They are too smart to take such pangas. They will not complain too much and too loudly and invite trouble for themselves. They are simply voting with their feet by leaving the country. The fact is, they have surpluses, and rather than invest in India, they'd move them overseas. Otherwise, if they saw a future in India, they would invest it in India, start something new, or buy assets in India and say that, look, if I have to grow, I have my best chance in this country. But no, they are leaving, and that is called voting with their feet. Also, their movement, their departure or their immigration is perfectly legal, and so many are leaving that there is safety and anonymity in numbers, because thousands are leaving. Who will somebody target? The question then arises, what are the even richer ones doing? Let's leave the fleeing millionaires aside and leapfrog to billionaires, or even more specifically, dollar billionaires. Most, if not all of these, would be entrepreneurs. It isn't even that many people. According to the latest data from Forbes, they are only 200 in number. Just 200. If the millionaires are quiet and leaving, the billionaires are actually the opposite. They are speaking loudly and volubly, praising the government, parroting its fifth largest economy and third soon and fastest growing large economy in the world mantra, and staying back in the country. It is just that they are not investing, and not because they have no love for India. This is despite being repeatedly chided by the finance minister. Why are you not investing? What more do we have to do? There's been so much reform, so on and so forth. It is just that if smart entrepreneurs see no demand, what should they invest in? And why? It isn't their burden to pull out their shareholders' reserves and build assets nobody would use or goods nobody will buy. Which brings us to the nub of the problem. Why did the demand collapse? Much of the demand ultimately comes from the largest consuming demographics in any country, in this case, the middle class. Again, it is a tricky definition, but let's make a wide sweep and describe the middle class as anybody who would normally have some surpluses to spend on something more than basic subsistence, which includes food, children's education, housing, health, and basic mobility, a car, motorbike, anything. It is that wide class, very wide class, ranging from, say, those earning rupees 12 lakhs per year to 5 crores per year, that is simply sitting back and hurting. They aren't rich enough to emigrate legally along with their assets. They are taxed at high rates and have also seen their investments lose value over the past year. Fun fact, the richer among them say those earning rupees 2 crores and above pay almost twice as much tax by percentage of their incomes as the top corporates or multi-billionaires. These are self-made, usually first-generation, aspirational, new rich who were fueling the India story. Today, they are taking hits as if from a multi-barrel rocket launcher, like that. Fuel prices continue to stay high, income taxes are oppressive. You hear from them a rising clamor that the state gives them too little in return for their taxes. See the state of your roads, see the state of your government schools, government medical system, so on and so forth. Law and order, their tax breaks on mutual funds, equity, property capital gains, and bonds are all vaporizing. Budget after budget, the finance minister is taking them away. They are also hit by rising costs in areas that may not be captured in our headline inflation figures. The rising costs of private education for their children, for example, because government education has limitations both of capacity and quality. So, too many middle class families have to send their children for private education, both schooling and higher education. How crippling this eduflation, as we call it, is, you can read in two stories by Fariha Iftikhar of The Print. You will see screenshots on your screen, and I will also share links with you with the description. They are the ones who are hurting, not buying anything they can avoid, postponing consumption, and they are primarily responsible for the disappearance of demand. The Prime Minister said the other day that Indians buy about 2.5 crore cars per year, which is more than the population of many countries. That's true. When you check out, however, who's buying, the lower end cars have inventories piling up, while the premium ones have waiting lists. You now know how fatigued and how wary the middle classes are. As they see how the new politics is unfolding around them, they are also getting infuriated. They see at the growing phenomenon of all political parties, now with the BJP in the lead, taking their tax money and spraying it among the more numerous poorer classes to buy their votes. Over the past 11 years, BJP governments have distributed at least, it's an estimate, I'm just counting the additional revenues over oil excise, etc., and many other taxes and expenses on the schemes that we quantify. The BJP governments over 11 years have distributed more than 20 trillion rupees already as straight giveaways, including free grain, and now this gravy train is running on a double engine. That's because all of the electoral politics in the states is now purely transactional. This is how much I will pay for your vote. This politics is Robin Hood with a twist. At least the original Robin Hood robbed the rich and distributed to the poor. The Modi governments have been soaking the middle class and giving away to the poor. From where does most of the taxes on your petrol and diesel come from, for example? While at the same time, the super rich, especially the richest, enjoy the lowest taxes ever. The wide middle class is the biggest, most loyal, and vocal supporter of the Modi BJP politics. All elections since 2014 have shown the BJP sweep the major and medium-sized cities except in the south where the party is fundamentally weak. In a state like Haryana, the BJP has risen from zero to hero, partly because of rapid urbanization. And how has the BJP responded? How have they rewarded their voters in Haryana? By relegating to below poverty line 75% population of India's third largest large state by per capita income. Check out the story which you see on your screens now by Sushil Manav of The Print. This, while the centre and the BJP proudly claim that India's overall poverty rate has fallen below 5% now, how do you square the two? India's overall poverty rate is below 5% and below poverty line population in India's third richest state is 75%. Doesn't square, no. The answer lies in today's politics. If you win elections by distributing to the poor, you have to find enough poor. And if you can't find enough poor, you just have to declare more of them poor. Who can win by spraying tax money? Who can win by spraying tax money over a mere 5% population if that's your population below poverty line? That's why the states now have an incentive in creating two classes of the poor. The genuine income-linked poor and the second, the electoral poor. State after state, this is the norm now. The electoral poor are often 10 times, if not more, at least 10 times, 10x, if not more, of what your next census would count as genuine poor. In this market, the political class trades the middle class tax revenues for votes of the relatively poor. As we had argued in a national interest on July 6, 2019, the BJP can afford to take the middle class for granted as much as the Congress and the other secular parties do with the Muslims. That's the reason we had then said that the middle class of the BJP is Muslims. But that was the idea of describing a captive vote bank. I was trying to be provocative. That's why the BJP would see no particular need now for course correction, because the middle class will keep complaining and still stay loyal because they like Modi and is called to Hinduized nationalism too much. They are happy that Muslims are so effectively sidelined, put in their place, and in any case, if not Modi, who? What is the alternative? One-sided, unrequited love isn't such a rare phenomenon. My colleague and our political editor at The Print, who you know well, DK Singh, even has an acronym for it from his years at JNU, FOSLA, F-O-S-L-A. That stands for Frustrated One-Sided Lovers Association. I believe there was even a book written about this. How do we then describe this obsessive middle-class love? Maybe dil hai ke manta nahi.